Prime Minister Mark Carney has seen a bump in personal approval ratings since he not so subtly took on U.S. President Donald Trump during his speech in Davos. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, though, has seen his approval slide in the latest polls. Let's dive in with our City Talks panel. Joining us is Amanda Alvaro, Jamie Ellerton, and Marion Nader. Thank you for joining us today. Jamie, I'm going to start with you. Poilievre's leadership review begins tomorrow. We'll have results by Saturday, but this is pretty much a done deal, is it not?
It feels like it. I think when you look at some of the research that's come out, David Coletto did a real deep dive in terms of some of the underlying dynamics and where Canada's voter coalitions are and what their view are of leaders. And Conservatives are rock solidly behind Pierre Poilievre, both party members and those who have supported him. So I think it's helpful for your audience to remember anyone voting in this leadership review in Calgary is going to be Conservative Party members who are elected as delegates in their local electoral district association who are traveling to Calgary to take part in this convention.
So they're
this is the truest of federal Conservatives showing up at this convention this weekend.
Are polls, though, showing a bit of cracks, though, in his base? Marion.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. So at the leadership, that's great. He can get North Korea numbers, and I don't think it's going to matter because if you can't grow past your base, then it's really unlikely that you're going to win an election. So because his favorables are just the same level as his negatives. So people who like him love him. Yes. People who don't definitely don't.
But therein lies the challenge, Amanda, for Pierre Poilievre. He has a strong base, but he has to build beyond it. But if he does he alienate that strong base?
This has been his challenge. We saw this through the last election, but he has to build. I mean, you can have all the base you want. You can get all of the support you need in a review. When you go out to a general election, you have to have a broader based appeal. He's lacking in that. He's particularly lacking in that among female voters. So he's going to have to shift his message a little bit to bring more people into that big blue tent.
And is he shifting sort of how he is communicating? Jamie, have you seen any change in him whatsoever in the last few months since the election?
I think the only real thing you've seen him substantially change is he's engaging with mainstream media more, which he pretty much shunned in the lead up to the last election. The message he's delivering has, I think, effectively been unchanged and kind of critiquing this government's lack of real impact on affordability and making life easier for Canadians.
Which he is effective at, and every government needs a strong challenger.
Yeah, and so like on the one hand, the official opposition exactly needs to do that, hold the government to account. There's a lot of time potentially between now and the next election. Maybe Amanda can tell us how real these spring election rumors are.
Oh, let's talk about do you think Carney, because honestly, earlier this week when he was, asked by a reporter repeatedly, he stumbled a little bit. What was with the hesitation?
I don't know. I don't think that there's going to be a spring election. I'm going to put my bet on the table right now. I can't imagine, given the volatility in the world, that we're going to be swung into this election. I think more likely Poilievre wins his leadership. We see some more floor crossers over to Carney's side, and that's how he gets the majority he needs to take his mandate through the next 3 years.
So let's talk about after Poilievre's leadership review, which by all accounts he's going to pass swimmingly. If there are more floor crossers, how badly will that wound him going forward?
I think it's really going to come from the reaction. I think at the end of the day, if you look at the number of days it has taken Conservatives back in the fall when those first floor crossers happened, they spent a week essentially feeding oxygen in the story and feeling spurred. If Pierre Poilievre wants to actually move forward and kind of turn the actual page, he's going to have to get over those hurt feelings really fast, bottle it, and actually give an alternative to Canadians. And I think when you look at the big picture of the day right now, it is clear that Mark Carney is enjoying a rally around the flag effect. Canadians writ large across the political spectrum don't like Donald Trump, and any time that Mark Carney is seen as taking on the president one-on-one, that is boosting his numbers and his appeal to all Canadians, regardless of political stripes. And so for the question for the Conservatives is, how do you keep your coalition and grow on it? And so I think this is where the domestic deliverability really comes down, because Mark Carney might sound great and a huge improvement and undeniably massive change after 10 years of Justin Trudeau. But their ability to actually deliver and what that cabinet looks like and what they're doing. This week's affordability announcement on the GST stuff felt like Justin Trudeau. It's like, oh, we're really getting hammered on affordability. Let's do something. GST relief. And so the kind of transactional nature of how this government's operating, I don't think Mark Carney's figured out how he actually leads the federal government to get all his ministers and department enacting on that. And that is where Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative opportunity lies, is to say, yeah, big picture, longer term foreign affairs stuff, we're generally in agreement as Canadians. Let's do it. But on the domestic stuff, they're like, here's how we can do better.
Marion's actually nodding behind you, which is rare for an NDP to constantly agree with a Conservative, I might say. But
it's interesting because, yes, Carney is very strong internationally. On the international stage, that's where he's good. He feels comfortable. Not so good on the domestic stuff. Where Poilievre is very strong is on the domestic stuff and not so much on
and
internationally.
raising the issues that Canadians are facing.
Yeah, so as long as Donald Trump keeps, talking and he's in the picture, that gives, more credence to Liberals and the polling numbers will sway that way. More of the domestic affordability, Poilievre is really great as being the leader of the official opposition, but now he needs to decide if he wants to be prime minister, he needs to change his game. And I think the leadership review is going to be whether the members support and rally behind Poilievre and his brand of politics and his style of politics, or do they need a different strategy? Because it's a different game, than you're playing against Carney, and he still thinks he's playing against Trudeau.
Well, Poilievre was considered highly criticized for not pivoting fast enough in the last election. Does he need to pivot further, Amanda, if he wants to be the next prime minister?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is that Canadians are really responding to competence. I know it's been a hot second, but this is what leadership looks like, right? And Carney's presenting that not just domestically, but on the world stage. And he's getting accolades internationally as well. Well, the Conservative Party is really just, into their chest thumping and their social media politics. Ooh. Not enough to move Canadians or move the needle on Canadians, how Canadians are feeling. He's done 12 deals in 4 continents in 6 months. Diversifying our trade relationships at a time when it's critical to do that. So yes, there's a lot domestically that needs to be done. There's a lot that needs to be done from a trade perspective in order to make sure that we don't have an over-reliance on the U.S. and we're set up for future economic stability and success.
Do you want to respond to that? Quick?
Yeah, listen, political communications is constantly an exercising and walking and chewing gum at the same time. Fundamentally, for the Conservatives, between now and the next election, they need to maintain their base of support and create overtures to bring skeptical Canadians on side. It's actually worth pointing out the Conservative Party vote in the last election, of which the Conservative Party lost, let's be abundantly clear, was a watermark at an all-time high. Yes. Mm-hmm. It brought more people into the fold. It brought people who often don't vote into the fold and kind of changed the composition of the Conservative Party voting coalition. And so as our politics are done differently, on the day-to-day basis, Pierre Poilievre needs to find a way to keep those people engaged while adding to it and just continuing to do the same thing. Without that is a recipe for defeat. You can't kind of believe your own spin and be like, we're just going to win and the Liberals are going to defeat themselves. The Liberal Party, more than any other party in the Western developed countries, is the ability of Madonna to recreate itself on a moment's notice, and everyone forgets what the last album cover looked like, and she's their whole new being. That is the Liberal Party to a T.
Where will Pierre Poilievre run in the next election? This is fascinating.
We should play political bingo on that. Yeah, like it could be literally anywhere.
I don't know. I mean, I think he's person non grata in Ottawa. So I mean, he might stay in Alberta, but it's going to be. I think it's a big question. But I mean, that's down the road. Who knows if even he might not be the leader in the election. He could win the leadership, but he might not be the leader for the next election.
Conservatives aren't known to keep their leaders around.
Yeah, I'll say this. If you look at the previous 2 elections with Andrew Scheer and Erin O'Toole, there were pretty quick, robust, and multiple movements to drive change, and everyone kind of had a preferred candidate. This time around, there's some disappointment, obviously dissatisfaction, and everyone's trying to figure out what that new normal looks like. And so there's some experimentation going on behind the scenes. Both people who are very loyal to Pierre Poilievre and some who are more critical of him are putting forth ideas and approaches in the marketplace of ideas right now within the party. But there is nobody truly organizing to try and replace Pierre Poilievre. And so I genuinely think he's going to be given that chance to lead the party into the next election, whether it's a snap election this spring or based off the composition of parliament.
So
that
you
could
disagree?
Be later.
You think there could be an election this spring?
I think there absolutely could be an election this spring. If you're Mark Carney and you're riding this high in the polls, the temptation to not go and get a 4-year mandate with a bigger seat count so you don't have to rely on the whip to win every vote by 1 would be a huge boost for his political fortunes.
Unless he gets some floor clausers and then it's not necessary. Okay, we're going to end on that note. Thank you for this conversation. This was wonderful, and we'll have a lot to talk about next week after the leadership review.
Thanks, Cynthia.